Today, we're going to be exploring informational text structure. That's how authors organize information. In today's session, we will explore the role these types of visuals play in helping readers to understand the texts. You will learn how authors organize information using cause and effect, compare and contrast, and problem-solution structures. Also, we're going to look at how visuals like charts, graphs, and diagrams enhance comprehension in these texts. Let's try some warm-up questions. Have you ever noticed when a story tells you why something happened? What might signal a cause and effect relationship? When you read about two things in a text, how can you tell if the author is comparing them? And can you think of a text that told you about a problem and then explained how it's solved? What clues did the author give you? Let's start with going over cause and effect. Cause and effect explain why things happen. That's to say, the structure explains why something happened, which is the cause, and what happened as a result, the effect. A couple of key words you want to look for. These words signal if we're talking cause and effect. Because, since, as a result, therefore, and due to. Here's an example. Because heavy rain flooded the streets, many schools were closed. This sentence shows that heavy rain, which is the cause, led to the school being closed, which is the effect. Let's look at another one. For instance, a scenario where a class is discussing why plants wilt. That's when they start to look kind of like they're dying and they're not very healthy. The first thing you might do is identify the cause. Perhaps not enough water is being given to the plants. The effect of this would be the plants are starting to wilt. Then you'd use signal words. These signal words help you put it in a full sentence. For example, you'd say, since the plants were not watered, they began to wilt. Now, I know that's a lot of information all at once, so let's try practicing it now together. Here's a short story. The storm blew strongly all night, so the big river started to flood. Because the water rose too high, the road near the bridge had to be closed. This meant that the bus could not drive to the school that morning. So from that little story, I want you to identify one cause and one effect. So you need to pick out something that happened in the story and then what happened because of that. Go ahead and give it a try. So the correct answer could be anything to do with the river flooding or the water rising too high. And then the effect would be either that the bridge had to be closed or that the bus could not drive to school that morning. So in this little story, there's a couple different answers, but they're all relatively the same, where there's one thing that happens and another thing that happens because of it. Now let's look at compare and contrast. This structure outlines what's similar and different between two or more subjects. You may have seen a Venn diagram before. That is a perfect example of a compare and contrast chart. Some words we want to look for because they're key signal words are likewise, in contrast, however, on the other hand. Here's an example. While a cat is independent and curious, a dog is loyal and friendly. This sentence compares a cat and a dog, highlighting the differences and similarities. Another compare and contrast could be comparing a lion and a tiger. They're both big cats, and they're both carnivores, which means they both eat meat. However, some ways they're different is a lion is large, golden brown, while as a tiger is orange and black. Now, I'd like you to give it a try. Go ahead and get out a paper and pencil and create your own chart comparing two different animals. You need to list the ways that they're different and the ways that they're similar. Go ahead and give it a try yourself. Let's look at problems and solutions. That's finding answers to challenges. This structure presents a problem and then explains the solution. Our key signal words to look for are, for example, to fix this, one solution is because, as a result. Here's an example. The playground was unsafe because of broken equipment, so the school repaired all the structures. This shows the problem, unsafe playground, followed by the solution, repairs. Here's an example of how you can break it down into steps. Let's consider if a scenario is a classroom problem having too much noise. First, we want to state the problem clearly. The classroom is very noisy. Then, we might want to go over possible solutions. We could make a quiet area. We could put in some noise-canceling panels. We could use a red light, green light system to try and have all of our students stay quieter. Step 3, we're going to select one solution and explain. Creating a quiet zone would provide a quiet area in the classroom and would help reduce our noise. Now, let's try practicing it yourself. Let's say you want to draw a picture, but your friend has all the markers. In this situation, what is the problem? So the problem is someone else has all the markers. You don't have any, and that's your problem. Now, let's consider some possible solutions. What could be done to fix this problem? Take a moment to brainstorm and come up with some ideas. Yes, a possible solution could be many different options. Maybe you ask your friend if you can borrow some of their markers. Maybe you get up and you ask the teacher or an adult that's around if you could have some other markers. Or maybe you see if there's anything else you can use to color or draw, like colored pencils or crayons. There's lots of different options for this. So if you picked anything that would allow you to draw a picture, well done. Now, let's look at the role of visuals in enhancing understanding. Visuals, or pictures, charts, graphs, diagrams, are all things that can be included in any type of writing to help you see or understand information more clearly. They can help us see all of the different things we've talked about today. Cause and effect, comparisons, and problem and solutions. Let's try an example. Imagine You're reading an article about recycling. A diagram might show a cycle where waste is collected, sorted, processed, and turned into new products. Now, you can either, of course, in the article, just read those words, or sometimes there'll be a chart or picture like this one, which helps you understand the process and see how it's a continuous one, how it keeps happening over and over again because it's in a circle. In this one, you can see the order of events and you can see cause and effect. The waste or the garbage is collected. Then it's recycled. So in this case, the waste we're talking about is products that can be recycled. Then it's made into new products. It's sorted, processed, and then the process all begins again. And that's what this picture shows us. That was a lot of information. So let's try practicing it ourselves with a little bit of an easier example. A plant starts as a tiny seed hidden in the soil. With water and sunlight, the seed grows roots and a small stem, becoming a young plant. Over time, the young plant gets bigger and bigger and stronger, and eventually it becomes a full-grown plant with flowers. Now I want you to take a moment and look at the picture. What is the picture showing, and how does it relate to what I just read? Now let's try some more practice. Get out a paper and pencil or any type of drawing tool you want. I want you each to pick out one text structure that we've gone over. For example, cause and effect, compare and contrast, or problem and solution. And I want you to go ahead and draw a diagram or chart of it. If you look at the picture, I give you an example of a couple different charts you could use. If you're choosing cause and effect, you might draw what's called a flow chart. What's called a flow chart. That's when you have a box, and then an arrow, and then another box. The first box, you'll put the cause in, and in the second box, you'll put the effect in. For example, I might say something like, in the first box, the cause could be the road flooded. In the second box, I might say, the bus was unable to get us to school, because that's a cause and effect. Now go ahead and draw out your own of any of those three we've gone over. Take your time and do your best. I'm sure you guys can make a really good looking chart. Feel free to be creative with it a little bit if you want. All right, so sometimes when we have all these different types of charts, it's easy to see them as small pieces on a screen, but sometimes it's harder to see how that actually matters in life. All these things we've been learning today are things you're going to see in real world texts, in your books, sometimes on your TV, anything like that. So let's go over an example for when you might see one of these charts. Imagine you're reading a new seating chart. A simple diagram might show where each student sits if the teacher explains that certain students are seated together because they talk too much, and now they are quieter, the effect. The visual chart makes it easier to see the new arrangement and understand the reason behind it. Let's take a look. it shows us the cause, which was a problem. And then it shows us the effect, which is the solution and the result. So you can see sometimes cause and effect can also be problem and solution. For example, this chart here might go with a little article or summary that says something like, our teacher made a new seating chart for the classroom to help everyone focus better. Now I sit next to my quiet friend, which helps me listen more carefully to the lesson. The new arrangement makes our class feel more organized and calm. So take a moment and look at our chart. What does it tell us, our cause and effect chart? What's the problem it's showing us? And what's the effect or solution? Now, let's go over some exit ticket activities. I've got a couple of them. I'd like you guys to try solving them yourself. Number 1, write one sentence that uses a cause and effect structure. Try using one of our signal words. Number 2, list 2 signal words that might indicate a compare and contrast relationship. Number 3, describe one visual that could help explain a problem or solution text. Then, 2 reflection questions. Number 1, how do visuals in an informational text help you understand the content better? And number 2, what strategies did you use to identify the text structure in an article? Take your time and do your best on answering these.